Army veteran Scott Tucker is helping military members and veterans plan financially for their future. Coming up next on Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com, or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. Army veteran Scott Tucker is an author, thought leader, public speaker, and an expert coach for transitioning veterans with years of experience helping military members and veterans plan financially for their future. He's the author of the upcoming From Deployment to Dollars, a book written to help military personnel transition into the civilian life with intention. All right, Scott Tucker, welcome to Veteran on the Move. We're looking forward to hearing your entrepreneurial venture story. But before we do that, take us back a little ways and tell us what you did in the Army.
Hi, Joe. I went to West Point, and I got out in 2002, and it was my senior year when 9/11 happened. So, think back to that time. We never thought we were going to war again, and that changed right when we were making our big decisions about what we wanted to kind of do next. So I ended up going air defense because I wanted to get stationed in Germany. And the way our rankings, class rankings work out, you get to choose your duty location. And so that's where I got stationed. I got stationed over in Germany and loved it. It was a really great experience to get out there and see the world. But soon after getting there, we got our orders, and I got sent down to Iraq for OIF 2. Got back from that deployment. I was in Tikrit for the first ID, and short-range air defense was going away, the Stinger missiles. And so they basically disbanded my unit, and I got reassigned. I still had time I had to do in Germany, and I got reassigned to be a GLOW, a ground liaison officer to the 52nd Fighter Wing at Spangdahlem Air Base in Germany. And so that was great because I got to go play Air Force in a way. I was the only Army guy. I didn't really know what I was doing, frankly, and they didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, but it was great to train. At the end of the day, when I did deploy with them, I did a couple deployments to Al Udeid Air Base in Doha, Qatar. Basically, the idea was to translate the ground mission to the pilots so there's, to minimize fratricide and really help with close air support missions. So that was really great to see the other side of the service, especially the Air Force, because it's, kind of misunderstood, I think, from a grunt Army perspective in a lot of ways. And then after that, I went to headquarters U.S. EUCOM in Stuttgart, Germany, and got to see all the high-level joint operations. So, and that's where I pulled the chocks and got out after about a year and a half in the knowledge management section, basically sitting behind big computers, all the computers and the big generals giving their briefings. So it was weird to see that aspect of it as well. Yeah.
So I always used to say, like, in the Marine Corps, the best time to be in the Marine Corps is when you're like a Marine stationed where you're not with other Marines.
Right.
It's great to be the token Marine, so great to be the token Army guy hanging out with the Air Force.
Right. That was a lot of fun.
You can tell whatever lies you want, and they have no idea if you're telling the truth or not.
There's that, and then you get to also enjoy their amenities. I mean, Air Force deployments were a lot shorter. They got all this extra leave, and hey, it's all true. The biggest mistake I ever made was not applying to the Air Force Academy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so as you were getting out, what were you thinking about as far as transition plan, getting the JOB, running your own show? What was going on?
All the wrong things. I mean, really, just
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right, because thinking back on it, because this is a lot of the theme of what I do now, and I think back to what I was going through my mind. I'm 27 years old, and basically I made my whole decision. I met a German opera singer, and I thought, well, no opera singing in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, so I guess I got to get out of the Army and stay in Germany. And that was kind of it, and just knew I had the educational background and contacts. You just kind of throw resumes around, and I just got out without any real expectations of what was going to happen next. I just kind of had this assumption because I think that's what happens to us in the military. We're used to being obligers and having so many things. Go to the dentist. Here's where you get here's how you get paid every month. And I just didn't properly mentally prepare for it. It always ends up working out. And I basically was introduced to a financial advisory firm that was operating over in Europe, and they kind of brought me on board and told me how you could run that sort of a business. And I think you understand it's not really a job when you do that type of business. It's all, hey, what business or what clients can you generate? But at the same time, it really is just kind of you're self-employed, but you are just in another job, but there isn't as many people telling you how to do or what to do it. So I put myself in a position where I thought I had all these great opportunities in front of me, but I just assumed how things were going to work just because based on my military background, I didn't know any better, and I didn't really have anybody telling me, what to be looking out for. And I kind of ended up in a rut there for a number of years, just not really feeling motivated around my new mission.
Yeah, so you kind of lost your way or lost your sense of purpose, trying to find. So you actually got out of the Army and you stayed in Germany.
Yeah. Okay. I stayed right there.
So trying to, obviously, the most recent network is probably your most valuable because it's right there where you're at. That's oftentimes the problems that veterans run into is wherever they may get out, that's not where they stay. They move back home, or they go back home where their spouse is from, or wherever it may be. Bottom line is they haven't been living there. They don't know. They might know some people from before, but if you've ever going back's it's not ever the same. It's not ever like you really thought it would be. And so you go back, you don't have that network, but you probably had a local network there, but it was mostly a military network. So in your financial services business that you were looking at or messing with, was it mostly a military oriented financial services?
Yeah, and that's what allowed it to actually kind of haphazardly work out. Is I started to had to focus on that military community overseas, just because of the way the laws work out in the financial industry. I couldn't go work with Germans or anything like that, and nor did I want to.
Interesting.
But so I would build up that local network of where I was at. So you're right. I was very lucky that at least initially I didn't transplant and go to a place where I didn't know a whole lot of people. So I did leverage that network. Did some things where I'd do sponsorships and really tried to build up my business. And eventually I got into a rhythm and became quite successful. For what I could, for the standards, when you're making, X amount of dollars as a young Army captain, and once you make a little bit more than that and you've worked a lot less hours, you're kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm good with this. But what I ended up building up was a whole bunch of clientele, of people that really weren't, the right demographic for me or my message or how I work with people. And I think that's a big mistake I made early on. It's just kind of throwing a wide net out there and be like, hey, I'll go and work with anybody. And it doesn't serve anybody at the end of the day when you end up in a situation like that.
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things when you're starting a business, even if it's an online business where you don't think you're ever going to be face to face with the customer that you're serving. Clearly defining who your target audience is, who that one avatar person you're speaking to. And I went through this when I was starting up the podcast. I had a number of different ideas. Mm-hmm. You really have to niche it down and who is it you're really specifically targeting. And the reason is, if you don't, in the beginnings of a business, there's going to be many forks in the road. And if you haven't clearly defined your target audience and your mission and values where you're going, every fork in the road, you're going to be confused as to whether you're going to go left or right.
Right. And my mentor, taught me a lot, but he operated in a completely different way that I didn't quite realize. He was all, proud of the fact that, hey, I've got clients in their late 70s that are, going through estate planning to someone in their early 20s getting out of college and just getting started. I can cover the whole thing. And next thing I know, I ended up with a Department of Defense teacher who's basically just, you've been teaching middle school in Europe for 40 years, and they're 70 some years old, and it's not anybody that I should be working with. I'm a single 33-year-old. What how am I, in the military? It just didn't mesh. So it took me a while to figure that out.
I'm sure after you've been in that business a while, maybe you become a little more flexible and understanding of the older generation and the younger guys now too, because now you're almost middle of the road at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you ended up, I understand you ended up moving back to San Diego at some point. Was that business related or something else?
That was heartbreak related. No.
Oh no.
Well, I mean, it's like anything, and a lot of times I think, it's a great metaphor for what it's like leaving the military when you're transitioning out of the military. And a lot of ways it's like a breakup, because, one day you're madly in love, this is going to be the person in the future. I'm going to start a family. And then when, everybody's been through a really, hard breakup, whether it's divorce or someone you're planning to get married to, it still changes your outlook on your future in such a way so drastically. You're like, I don't know what is next. And thinking back to my military transition, it was a lot of the same way. All of a sudden, I found myself in Germany without the family plan I had assumed was going to happen. And my business is over there, but it wasn't anything I really understood the mission behind it or what I wanted to do. And I just realized I'm kind of stuck here in Germany. Now, I happen to be in Germany. I think this can happen to anybody where they're at. Once they just find this isn't what I want, this isn't what I expect it to be like, I want to figure it out. And so part of that for me was I need to get out of Germany. And I looked around the States. DC was going to be logical, but somebody suggested, dude, go to San Diego. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to San Diego. I didn't know anybody here, though, so I did come in here blind.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Army guys running around San Diego.
There are
mostly squids and jarheads, right?
That's right.
So yeah, I used to live just up the road from there. So yeah, and the best way you're talking about relationship with the Army or personal relationship. The best way I ever heard it put was as a British officer several years ago up at the Army's Command General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth. He says, no matter how much we love the Army does not have the ability to love us back. And it's so true. It's like you dedicate your life work to whatever service you may be in, and then you wonder why they just spit you out sometimes, or why it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to. And it's just they're institutions, and we're there to serve them. They're not really there to serve us, and it's kind of a slap in the face sometimes. But you gotta remember the reality of the situation. It's we're there to participate, do our best, and serve our service and country. But oftentimes the service themselves do not actually have the ability to love us back.
Right. Unfortunately, that is just the nature of the beast, and we need to be accepting of it, take ownership and responsibility of that fact. If tomorrow you are no longer in the Army, what does the Army do? Army keeps moving. But if tomorrow, all of a sudden, if you weren't expecting it and the Army disappeared, what are you going to do? And that situation won't happen, of course, not in one day. But if you don't know the answers to that issue, if should it happen, that's when you realize, like, the Army isn't there forever. We can put our lives into the Army, but everybody's career comes to an end. Very few people do that 30-plus year career. So we got to realize that. Yeah,
and no matter how long you stay, your career is still going to come to an end. It's predetermined. It's going to end. It will.
And you're like 40.
When. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Super young.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, hey, Scott, while I'm thinking of it, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Have you joined the Veteran on the Move Facebook group? I personally invite every guest that I have on the podcast to join the group. So the Veteran on the Move Facebook group is a great way to connect with previous podcast guests. Our Facebook group will keep you in touch with other veterans that are transitioning to entrepreneurship, and you will also get great updates and free guides on the people, programs, and resources that will help you in your transition to entrepreneurship. All right, we're back talking with Scott Tucker from Be Financially Fit. Now, Scott, over the break, you and I were just discussing it was actually another company. You were working for a company over in Europe when you initially got out of the Army, financial services, that kind of thing. But recently, you have left that company and you're starting up on your own. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people in the military are interested in getting into financial services. It's a great industry. It can be misunderstood in a lot of ways, but when you join the industry, you don't really, even if you go to like a Merrill Lynch or one of those giant name firms, you don't become an employee of theirs when you join this industry. You get to use their brand name, maybe use their offices, their secretaries or something like that. And then when you bring in business, they take a cut and you take home whatever your percentage is. And so every company operates different. And it's a great structure. It allows people to get started, have some infrastructure around them. But a lot of times advisors hit a point where, just like any type of bureaucracy, you get limited. There's more rules and regulations, and maybe you want to brand a little bit different. Maybe you want to talk to a different audience. And I struggle with years trying to, going back to what we were talking about before the break, trying to figure out what my mission was. And once I figured that out, I got really excited. Part of coming to San Diego and leaving Germany has allowed that. I met entrepreneurs, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out there. There's other people. I can be like them. And unfortunately, in the industry, there's just so many rules and compliance regulations, and this happens in a lot of industries, and it's just everybody's scarcity mindset. And assuming, like my CEO was talking on the phone one day about the financial regulators, and he even said, he's like, hey, they assume we're crooks until we prove them otherwise. And I think that's unfair for any American business to be assumed that way, but it's the reality of the industry. So I finally realized that, this isn't just a struggle for me to try to make this work, to try to write a book, to do online videos, and to really get out and spread my message. That it's not that it's a struggle, it's actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity for me, and I can capitalize this on right now by just creating my own thing and doing it my own way, the way I want to do it. And when it works the way I want it to, the profits will be mine, and I'll be able to build my team. And that's what I plan to do. I want to grow out and bring other veterans and military spouses on board to work with me to help them make money and grow their own businesses. So I could have never done that had I not branched out on my own.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, that in essence, the true motivation to get out and become an entrepreneur and run your own business is because you can make it into what you want it to be. Otherwise,
right,
you're just feeding some machine that somebody else started, and not to say
and that's fine.
There's nothing wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with great companies out there and working for them for a full career. But you just have this. That's one of the characteristics of entrepreneurs. They've got something in mind. They got a vision. They want to make it, turn it into what they want it to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it's. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so I was just gonna ask you. So where are you at right now in leaving the company you're working for and starting on your own?
Oh, great question. I am in the process of registering a what's called a registered investment advisor, or an RIA, and that just allows me to operate within the state of California as that entity, and that's in the process. It's a long process. You can't just go start a financial advisor firm. You have to register with the state. That takes a few months. And so I'm in the process of that. And then once that launches, then I can branch out into other states. And it can all be online based. I don't necessarily have to have offices in different locations. But so that's the legal entity of it. And then the other aspects of it are I got my online platform, websites, and I got a book coming out. All that's should be launching in the next couple weeks, actually.
Okay, great.
Right. So over the summer.
Yeah. So by the time this airs, your book will probably be out. What's the name of your book, and what's it all about?
Sure. It's called From Deployment to Dollars: How to Master Your Money, Mission, and Life as a Military Veteran. And really, about a year ago, I never wanted to be an author, never even thought about it. And I talked to a business coach, and he was like, "Oh, no, you need to write a book." And he just forced me to do it. And literally, I wrote the whole thing and had it published on Amazon within about a month. And that was kind of just a download from my brain. And the best part of writing the book was not having a book and being proud of accomplishing that. It was the actual act of getting the thoughts out of my head. And it's it really clarified my mission. So everything I'm doing right now is all because of the book writing process, getting that out. Now, at the same time, holy cow, I've got this great tool as a catalyst to launch this business. So it's really, worked well for me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of folks on the show that have written books, and we've talked about the process you go through in writing a book and that kind of thing. And a lot of times, guys have written books of their military experiences mainly for a therapeutic result, not necessarily that they were trying to sell books. So I identified with what you said, the whole process of just getting it out of my head and onto paper. And that's where the therapeutic aspect of it comes from.
And so then what it's about, what I was getting out of my head is I was really talking to myself. 15 years ago, the day I commissioned into the Army, everything I know now, what do I wish I would have known then? From a financial perspective, obviously, but also from a kind of a life, mission, life purpose. What do you want to do? Why are you going to work? Why are you making money? And so I talk about all those issues from a military perspective. How do we need to maybe readjust how we think about our military career? Obviously, be very proud of it, but understand this is a benefit. You're getting a lot of financial benefits. It's not just that you get a housing allowance. Your paycheck's a benefit. How we get structured, the potential pensions, understanding how that if we capitalize and leverage that for our transition as the priority, so that we can go out and really create what it is we want to do, whether that's starting a business or getting a job. But you can do it in a way and feel flexible and comfortable that you're not just replacing the paycheck because holy cow, my military career is over and what am I going to do? I need my benefits. And I think that's the rut most people get stuck in, is they just need to get that paycheck replaced. And I want to kind of inspire people to think a little earlier about that transition, organize yourself for it so that you can go out and do what you want and not just get stuck and wake up one day at age 70 and think back to, wow, the greatest thing I ever did in my life was back when I was 25 serving in Iraq. I think we should always continue to be out doing great things, especially as veterans. Our country needs us more than ever. But if we aren't set up financially to be able to capitalize on it, then we can't do it. And our country hurts from it. You hurt from it. Veterans as a whole do. So that's what I'm trying to get the message about. I think it's a pretty simple process and simple strategies and basically just mindset that we can shift to really capitalize on what the opportunity of being a veteran is.
Yeah, I agree completely. And there's so many of us that get out and just haven't really thought much about it. You go through the mandatory separations classes and all that, and then boom, you're on the street. And I see a lot of guys, especially the younger folks that maybe only in for a few years, and they know they got the GI Bill. So they're like, well, I guess I'll just go to school then because I can get the BAH, I can get the BAH monthly and blah, blah, blah. And so but they're not really going to school for the right reason. They're just going to school for the sake of tapping the GI Bill. And I'm like, man, sometimes it seems like such a waste because sometimes they're just using it on a community college or, when you could go to a really nice university if you really wanted to. And especially with the yellow ribbon program and private universities. And I've interviewed folks who are like, dude, don't waste the GI Bill's gold, man. Don't waste it on community college stuff. You could almost pay for community college out of pocket for a little bit, and then when you get your direction, then go use your GI Bill. But they just want that BAH, and so they can pay for the apartment or whatever.
That is a great point. That is a fantastic point because why are they doing that? They're doing it to buy time, and I think you should buy time. But you're right. Don't waste that amazing GI benefit on something like community college. But at the same time, for the guys who go do it, I know a guy, West Point graduate, got out of the Army, used his GI Bill to go get an MBA from some nice state university, not just a community college. Went through his whole MBA, and then he was here in San Diego, and he was going to the Service Academy Career Conference, another job fair. And he was asking me if I was going. I said, I didn't know about it. I was like, oh, who are you going to go talk to? And he had just graduated from his MBA. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I'll just pass my resume around and see what happens. I'm like, what? You just spent your GI Bill, spent 2 years in a graduate master's program. You're a West Point graduate, an Army officer, a veteran, combat veteran. And you're still just going to hand out a resume. And guess what? At a Service Academy career fair, does your resume maybe kind of look like all the other military combat veterans as well? I mean, I know it's awesome. Like, my resume looked awesome. I thought it was awesome. But now I realize, yeah, everybody led 30 soldiers and nobody, there were no major incidents or something like that. So we got to find a way to, one, know what we want, and then also stand out. How are we branding ourselves? Using the tools that 2017 offers to make sure you get what you want and stand out to those companies. How do you provide value to those companies? So, yeah, using that GI Bill with intention is the clear thing. But buy time until you figure out the answer to that question.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Buying time is essentially what they're doing. Unfortunately, they're buying time, and they're blowing their GI Bill, because it's just there, and they don't think about, well, I got to use it or lose it anyways, or whatever. And this, if you're one of those that was able to, gift it to the wife or kids or something like that. But
sure,
but it's a symptom of a larger problem, and that's I didn't really think about what I was going to do when I got out, and so I guess I'll just buy time. If you want to get out and go to school, then get out and go to school. By all means, great way to go, and that's what the GI Bill is for. But I think some of them they're just wasting it. And when school's over, then what are you going to do? They haven't even thought about what they're going to do when school's over with. So that's the real key is if you're here using your GI Bill, what's your plan when you get out, or what are you working on right now before you even get done with school?
Right. And if the opportunity is still there and someone who's listening, finds himself in the dilemma, they were maybe just going to use it for the next thing and see what happens next, using the GI Bill. Maybe we just need to stay in the military a little bit longer and buy the time there before we get out and just do something. Don't forget, that's what I did. I was all set up, had dropped my packet, and then my branch manager called me up one day and said, hey, what can we do to get you to stay in? And I didn't want to stay in, but I realized, you know what? I need another year to figure out how I want to get out and do this financial thing. Now, I didn't quite do it the best way, but I did buy myself a year, save up some more money, give myself a lot more of a buffer room to be successful when I transitioned out.
Yeah, and I've spoken on the show many times before. I think the ultimate transition into entrepreneurship is you start some kind of business or idea on the side a couple of years before you're set to get out, or maybe even several years if you can do that. And then you get to the point where the only thing that's you're making money, it's successful, but you can't really scale it up and grow. And the only reason keeping you back is the fact that you still have a job. Then you transition out and boom, you're off and running. You've created enough runway for yourself. You got financial stash to make things happen, and most importantly, you got the business up and running. It's going. Now you just got to scale it. That's the ideal situation, which rarely happens to any of us.
Yeah.
But if there's an ideal situation, that would be it. But so at least aim for that if you can, and if it doesn't quite fit your scenario, then try to get as much of a head start as you possibly can.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Just start something on the side. I mean, I think that the idea of entrepreneurship is very daunting, but God, there's no easier time to be successful, even in a small way. There's so many resources out there, free, or invest in something, to get really behind it. Don't be afraid to figure it out. But yeah, to wait and then jump into it, as so many veterans do, and just get out and be like, all right, I'm going to start my business, and really trying to learn all the ropes of it. No. There's too much to learn. Use the time while you're still in with a paycheck.
All right. Okay. So Scott, we're getting close to the end of our time. So I do want to give you a chance for another shout out. How do we find you? What's the name of your website, your company, where we can find your services, and also a plug for your book that's coming out soon?
Yeah, sure. You can. My new website will be launched at BFinFit, all one word there. And I'd love to offer a free copy of the book to all your listeners. You can get that at scotttucker.us/book. And I'll just have a kind of a page up there where you can get a copy, download a copy of the book.
Awesome. Okay.
That'd be great.
Hey, and one last thing. If you're talking to that veteran, soon-to-be veteran out there that's looking to get started in entrepreneurship, what kind of advice would you have for him?
I like to say give yourself a 3-year window. When that means time frame to really hash through your ideas. That also means saving, so you can have 3 years of money to not only live off of, if needed, if your business takes a while to become profitable, but to invest in your business. You gotta be able to do that, and sometimes that takes significant chunks of money, even if you're just an online business. But to give yourself a real 3-year window, I think it takes a lot of the pressure off of getting into the risky venture of being an entrepreneur. We're military. We have the riskiest job out there. Yet when it comes to transition, we tend to do the safest thing. So give yourself that buffer room so you feel confident around it.
All right, great advice. All right, Scott. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but great interview. I appreciate you sharing your story of transition and entrepreneurial success, and we look forward to seeing your future success.
No, thanks a lot, Joe. I really appreciate being on.
All right. These two veterans are Oscar Mike. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.